a good way to identify those is just to keep your wits about you and just to pause for a few seconds before you click on a link, before you make a payment, just making sure that, the spelling is right, just making sure that you stop and you check, and that'll help you protect yourself.
Hello there, and welcome to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hind, and I am here today to talk to you about cybersecurity, about scams, about protecting yourself. This has been a 3-part series. If you haven't checked out the previous podcasts in this series, absolutely go and have a look at those. But this, I think, is the grand finale and possibly the most important of the 3, because in this episode, I'm going to be chatting with a cybersecurity expert from Cyber Wardens. We're going to be talking to Kimberley Roberts-Salee, who specializes in not just identifying and protecting businesses and individuals from cybersecurity, but training them in how to be proactive in preventing issues. Today in this episode, her and I had a really great chat around what are some of the common things that you need to be aware of, what are the red flags, how do you protect yourself, and what are a few really simple, quick and easy things you can do to set up that might save you oodles of time, heartbreak, and of course, money when it comes to being hacked or scammed, etc. So I think this is a really powerful episode. I think absolutely everyone needs to listen to this one, but I also want to top it off by saying that during the episode, Kimberley talked about an amazing training that they have created at Cyber Wardens. It is all government funded, and this training is designed to give you a little bit of knowledge in the space of cybersecurity, what to be aware of, how to protect yourself, and some simple things that you can do. This training, she talks about taking only 10 minutes for their basic training, and they have a few other levels that you can choose to do that are very quick and very easy to complete that could save you insane amounts of time and money down the track. What she didn't mention in the episode, and I feel I absolutely need to tell you about this now, is that these trainings are free. They don't cost a cent. They have been government funded. So this means that you get access to these trainings through the links we're going to provide in the show notes with this episode to do right now at no charge. So please make sure that you avail yourself to those trainings. Now, she does talk about them being business related. If you are not a business person, the fundamentals she explained to me are still the same. So if you want to learn how to protect yourself, if this is important to you, and it should be, then please go in and do those trainings. I cannot stress that enough. But as we dive in, I just want to remind you, this is not a fear-mongering episode. We do talk a lot about some of the terrible things that have happened to people and what you've got to look out for. But this really is about awareness. And at the end of the day, as you grow your social media presence for your business, you are growing an asset, something that is worth money. And so I want you to consider it this way. If you set up a bank account, if you buy a car, if you buy a house, you insure and protect those things. You make sure people don't get access to them, and you keep yourself informed enough so that you are protecting those assets. And I want you to think about your social media and your online presence in the same way. It's an asset to you personally and professionally. So it is important that you protect it, and it's an easy in if you don't. So please don't fall victim to scams. Please listen to this episode. I promise you this will save you so much time and money in the long run. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand over now to the interview with the amazing Kimberley. Let's dive on in. Grab yourself pen and paper. You're going to need it today, and enjoy the episode. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Kimberley, and welcome to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. It is so great to have you in here, and I am actually really excited for this episode. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Sam. I'm really excited to be here and to be talking to your listeners about cybersecurity for their small business.
Yes. And I think a lot of them are going to be really excited to hear what you've got to say too, because scam and security and, I reckon we would probably get 3 or 4 emails or messages a day from people saying, is this real? Is this a scam? And I
Yep.
think you're going to help us clear a lot of that up today, right?
We're here to provide them with solutions to make sure that they stay safe online.
Yeah, awesome. And so, as head of marketing and communications at Cyber Wardens, before we get into all of those nitty gritty details, do you want to share with us a little bit about Cyber Wardens, what you guys do, and how you support small businesses?
Absolutely. So Cyber Wardens is an initiative of COSBOA, which is the Council of Small Business Organizations of Australia. We're government funded by the Australian government, and we're also partnered with Telstra and Combank as an industry alliance. So Cyber Wardens was launched about a year ago now, and essentially it's an online training course for small businesses to gain the tips and the tools that they need to stay safe online. So it's a cybersecurity online course that they can do at their own pace online, and that provides them with the tips that they need to make sure that they don't fall prey to cyber attacks.
Awesome. And when you say small course, like this is a really small, really quick, easy course to do, right? Like how long does it take
Yep.
for people to complete?
So you can start getting that protection against cyber threats in as little as 10 minutes. We have a range of courses on our website. We have a range of modes of delivery as well. So we've got the foundations webinar, the foundations course, which is a 10-minute online course that people can do just quickly, and it gives them the quick basics to make sure that they're able to identify cyber threats. We've got level 1 that's a bit more, not advanced, but it's a bit longer. So it gives them a chance to dive a bit deeper into cybersecurity for small businesses. And we've launched also the Foundations webinar, which is the same content as the Foundations course online, but we deliver it through live engagement through a webinar. So that's all available on our website. And essentially the webinar is really good because it's interactive. They can ask questions, and there's kind of a Cyber Wardens educator, so a human delivering the content if people prefer that mode of delivery.
Awesome. I love that. I love that you guys have really taken into account that small business owners are busy too. And so they're really quick to consume, quick to do. We'll put the link for people to check that
Awesome.
out in the show notes with this too. So if anyone wants to do that. And don't forget, of course, if you are an Academy member with us, we have a security training as well in your portal. So please make sure that you do that. But let's get in and talk a little bit now about cybercrime and what that means, because I think there's lots of different ways that people can get scammed. And when we talk about cyber, can you tell us what we're talking about when we talk about cybercrime? What is it? What does it cover?
So cybercrime can take a lot of different forms, a lot of shapes. One of the main ones that people need to be aware of is business email compromise. And that's essentially an inbox break-in. That's when cyber criminals essentially gain access to your inbox. Once they're in your inbox, imagine all the stuff you have in your inbox. So you've got probably passwords saved, bank account details somewhere, you've got supplier information, company strategy, company data, probably also some personal information for your personal life. So once cyber criminals are into your inbox, they can they've got access to all of your online data. And from there, they can launch secondary attacks. So they can impersonate you to your suppliers or to your customers. They can send malware on your behalf to customers or suppliers. They can drain your bank accounts if they have access to your bank accounts. So it's really the business email compromise is kind of the start of everything, where you need to be really aware as a cybercrime.
Yeah. So just as we go into this, because I mean, initially we're going to talk about what all the threats are, and then we're going to talk about what you can do to protect yourself. I want to be really clear that this isn't about fear mongering. I don't want you to kind of listen to this episode and go, oh my gosh, that's something I didn't think of. That's the whole idea. We want you to be aware of the things you didn't think of before you get into any strife. And actually protecting yourself is really quick and easy. It just usually takes a few little steps that you may previously have not thought of doing. So we've got email break-in, which can happen to a business, or it could also happen to an individual, and it can be just as damaging. So we've got that, and we'll get to that in a moment. What are some other versions of cybercrime that people need to be aware of?
I'm really glad just before, I'm really glad that you did mention the fact that we don't want to fear monger. And it's really, the program itself is really for people to protect themselves. It's the same thing as if you think of smoking campaigns or skin cancer campaigns. The key is really protection, so that it doesn't happen to you. So rather than just hoping to ignore the problem until it happens, it's being proactive in that environment. So, in addition to the business email compromise, another crime that we see a lot is fake invoices. And that's when you receive an invoice from a supplier that you're used to receiving invoices from, but the cyber criminals will have basically replicated an invoice from that supplier,
Yeah.
change the banking details, and then get you to pay that
Pay it.
invoice into their account rather than into your supplier's account. So anytime you see an invoice where the banking details have changed and it's one of your trusted suppliers, that should be a huge red flag, to really stop. Call your supplier, call the number that you know they have. Don't call the number on the invoice because, again, they could have changed that. And make sure that they have indeed changed their banking details before you go ahead and pay that invoice. So the fake invoices is a huge one.
Yeah.
Another one is phishing. So we've all heard of phishing. They're essentially those dodgy links that we receive in an email. You receive them, you think it's a legitimate link, so you click on it, and it takes you to a website where from there you'll be prompted to log into a certain website, usually a website that you're used to using. And from there, the cyber criminals will be able to have access to your data, to your login and your passwords. So
Yep.
phishing is another big one as well to be aware of. And again, a good way to identify those is just to keep your wits about you and just to pause for a few seconds before you click on a link, before you make a payment, just making sure that, the spelling is right, that the grammar is right in the emails. You are indeed expecting an invoice from a certain supplier. It's not an unexpected invoice that you're receiving out of the blue. So yeah, just making sure that you stop, and you check, and that'll help you protect yourself.
Yeah. And I want to just talk about the phishing one for a minute. And when we're talking phishing, we're talking PH, not F. So this
Yes.
is online phishing. But this happens through lots of different sources. We see this one happening a lot through social media as well, where you might get a warning telling you, oh, your Facebook page is about to be shut down, or
Yes.
you've breached these community standards and you're about to get removed from Facebook, or something's about to happen that's dramatic that would make you want to click that link. This is another way as well that you can get really caught out. So I think what you just said there, Kimberley, is so important. Like, look at the grammar first. That's your first telltale, right? And then also look at the email or the website, because, I reckon email inbox, I probably get 5 to 10 a week of emails that I know are not from who they say they're from. People, trusted sources like Telstra, Facebook, I'm just trying to think of, I got one the other day, I think from one of the major supermarket chains. These are designed to trick you into thinking that they're legitimate. But if you look at the email addresses, they won't be from those URLs,
Correct.
the website address. So it won't be telstra.com.au. It'll be Telstra / something or other / something or other.
Or like
dot that.
Telstra support or something like that, or something that sounds legitimate,
Yes.
but upon closer inspection isn't. You also get those on text messages as well. So I receive quite a lot of those. I've been receiving them recently from MyGov. Every morning I get some fake MyGov phishing SMS that I know to delete and report right away. But you mentioned the social media as well. It's really prevalent for small businesses that use social media as their main marketing channel. We've seen small businesses that receive a link, like you said, either you've breached our community guidelines, or we have a story of a podiatrist actually who made it really big. He made it on Shark Tank. He got some funding from Shark Tank, from the Shopo founder. So he's a successful small business owner. He received a Facebook message saying that his family was in trouble and to click this link to be able to help them. And he clicked the link because they appeal to your emotions. They appeal to the fact that you're busy. They appeal to the fact that, that they try to put some urgency in there as well to make sure that you don't think too much about it. And yeah, they were able to hack into his account. He was never able to recover the account. They used his credit card that was attached to the account to go on a shopping spree of sorts. He was never able to recover the account, so he ended up having to rebuild his Meta account from scratch. So
Yeah.
it's really, those stories really bring it home for me because he's a really smart guy. He's been able to build a business where he's been able to go on Shark Tank to gain the investment of the sharks. So he's not some,
He's
guy who
not
doesn't know
silly.
anything.
Yeah.
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 And he fell for it. And when I met him, actually, he was telling me how much of a mental and emotional toll it took on him.
Yeah.
Not just from like a mental health perspective, but he was paranoid. Every time he got Facebook messages, he became paranoid. He didn't know if it was
Yeah.
legitimate. And obviously, like the reputational damage to his business, because they were posting inappropriate content from his Facebook page. So stuff like crypto scams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and obviously the financial damage that it causes. So it's really, hearing those stories really bring it home. And it's putting those protections and those steps in place before this happens.
Yeah. And I think that's I really love what you said there, that it happens to all of us. And the whole reason, by the way, I said to you when we caught up the other day, Kimberley, the whole reason that we've done this episode or this series is because I got scammed. And I was like, man, the amount of people that I have come to me going, oh, I'm so stupid, or this happened, or, I'm so heartbroken. It is heartbreaking. And just when you tell that story, it hurts my heart because we don't think about our social media in particular as being worth money until we don't have it anymore. And you are investing, every minute you invest into your social media, even if it's just your personal profile, is your time, and you cannot get that back. And the thing a lot of people don't think about is if you lose your Facebook, for example, and you don't even need a business page. Let's say you lose your personal profile. Think of every image that you have saved there that you have not got on your phone anymore. Like, my social media brings up memories and things for me for the last
15
15
years.
years that I don't have anywhere else. Now, there are things you can do to download and save that information, but most people haven't done that. And what would happen if that was gone and some stranger had access to it? It's heartbreaking.
It is.
But the thing to remember is the reason you have to protect yourself, and the reason that this episode is so important, is because it happens to everybody, even people who are successful business people, even people who are technically savvy, even people who know better. Because the whole reason scammers scam is because they're coming up with new clever ways all of the time. So yes, there are some dumb things you can get caught up with. Like if you get the Nigerian message saying that a prince died and left you, $1 million, and you fall for that one, I'm really sorry, but like, shame on you. Come on, we all know that one's not real. They still try it on though.
Yeah, I mean, some people unfortunately will still fall for those, but they, like you said, they've become so much more sophisticated now.
Yeah.
They're able to, they're able to get even information from like your out of office message. So if you're putting it out of office because you're going to Italy for, a European summer getaway, and you're putting the dates that you're going into, that you're traveling, and you're putting, where you'll be in Italy, they're able to see that on your out of office and impersonate you to your staff if you have a team and say, look, I'm stuck in Italy. My bank account is blocked. Can you please send me, XYZ, $10,000. I need this right away. And, they appeal to the employees wanting to help their boss, or help their friend if it's more of a personal situation. But yeah, they're really clever. And with AI as well, now they're using AI as well to be able to replicate the tone of someone's emails, or the way that they would write, the way that they would communicate, to make it even more difficult to discern whether or not it's a real email.
So let's start with the red flags. What are some of the red flags people need to look out for? We'll finish on social media, but let's go through all the different areas. What are some telltale signs that this is maybe not real, a scam, something to be aware of?
There's quite a few red flags to be able to identify, and They apply whether it's email or social media or SMS, kind of anywhere where you're online. They do apply across multiple channels. One of the main ones that I mentioned before is anything where you see typos or a suspicious link, a link that almost looks like it should be legitimate, but it's not. We talked about the Telstra before, Telstra support, or Facebook would have, Facebook help rather than facebook.com.au or anything like that, facebook.com. So it's just having that attention to detail. And I know it's really hard because I know we're really busy and small business owners are doing a million things at a time. They've got, they wear many hats. But it's really important to have that attention to detail when you're receiving anything that you're not expecting. So again, we talked about the unexpected invoices or changes to invoice details. Anything where a link looks suspicious or an attachment. And you think attachments, you think emails usually, but they can also send it through your social media. They can send it through your messenger. We had a story of a small business owner who received an attachment through their business messenger, where the sender was saying that they bought their product and the product was faulty, and they wanted to complain essentially, and they wanted a refund. And of course, as a small business owner, you want to rectify the situation as soon as possible. They sent a photo of the faulty item. Unfortunately, that person didn't check the attachments. They were just too they were too worried about wanting to answer quickly. And it ended up that the attachment wasn't a JPEG file as a normal photo. It was a ransomware. So as soon as they opened the attachment, it basically infiltrated their device. So stuff like that is just things that you need to be aware of. So again, it's just always
just coming back to that for a little second, because there's two questions I've got around both of those examples. So with that example there, how can someone tell, like if they're like, well, how would they know that the attachment was going to be ransomware? What would have been the red flag there for them?
So it's really insidious because you don't really think about seeing it. But when you receive an attachment, the extension .jpeg would be an image, or .mov if it's a video. In that case, it was .rar, which is ransomware. So RAR is not a usual file type that you send to send through an image. And that's how they were able to get into their device. So just, those little file extensions. Yeah, you don't look at that when you're receiving a message.
No. So, and to come back another step, we were talking about the example with Telstra, for example. If you're listening to this from the US, that's one of our biggest telecom companies here in Australia. So any Australian would know telstra.com.au. So with regard to that, Telstra support sounds pretty legit. How can someone cross-check that?
So the best way to do it when you're unsure is to if there's any phone numbers or anything on that email, don't call those phone numbers. Don't click on anything on that email or on that message. Search for the phone number independently. So you go on Google, you go on the Telstra website, you go on the website where it's the legitimate website. Often those big corporations as well will have their own scam centers where you can report an impersonation. So Telstra certainly has a cyber security arm, and they've definitely got their scam watch scam centers there as well. So always go back to the source through independent research or independent means, and not through any of the message or the email or the SMS. So that's a good way to at least start making sure that you're reporting it through independent means.
Yeah, awesome. And you were saying to me earlier as well that even you have been getting like text messages as well from MyGov for the last little while. And you said that you are reporting those. Like, what are you doing to report them? How are you going about doing that?
Yeah, so I get them on my text messages in the morning, usually when I wake up. I've been getting them for a few days now. I've got an iPhone, so when you swipe left on a text message, you can delete, or you can delete and report. So I make sure to delete and report. It's really important where you can report. It just helps with gathering more data around the prevalence of cyber attacks or cyber threats. In my case, it's not a cyber attack because I've identified it and I've reported it. But yeah, it's it takes me 5 seconds. But then at least, and then it disappears from your inbox as well, so you're not tempted to reopen it and click on it by accident.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So let's talk about red flags then when it comes to Facebook, social media in general.
Yeah.
Let's go social media in general here. What are some things that people should be, should have those little alerts go up, those red flags in their mind when they see them?
Yeah, so anything like we mentioned before, where it asks you to act urgently or to act sometimes in a secret manner, or to not really disclose what you're doing to anyone else. Anywhere where, we talked about the breach of community guidelines. If you know that you haven't breached any community guidelines, have confidence in yourself that you haven't done anything wrong. And I think they prey on that fear of people doing something wrong. So just reflect on where you could have breached any guidelines, and if anything, go separately again, independently, to research that. The phishing links, again, it's all very similar across platforms. One that's starting to come out is on TikTok. And that's fake celebrity profiles or anything like that. So obviously TikTok is huge in the influencer world. So some scammers will use fake celebrity profiles to access to reach out to business accounts. So, you're an influencer. You're a small business. You get an email or you get a message on TikTok from an influencer saying that they want to collaborate with you. That's another way where scammers have found a way to infiltrate small businesses. So we talk a lot about Facebook and Meta, but TikTok is one that's coming up as well, in terms of having to be careful and having your guards up.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say, when it comes to Facebook in particular or Meta, they won't send you a message in your messenger. So Facebook has its own support inbox, and they also have access to your email because you had to register with your email address. They don't contact you through Messenger. So if you get a messenger message saying that you have breached something or that your account's about to get shut down or whatever that is, know that that's not where they communicate with you, and that should be another red flag as well. And
That's
another
a
one,
really good point. Yeah. And go through the Facebook support through your own account, and not through any kind of email or message that you receive inbound.
And I just wanted to look this one up as well, really quickly, because I've also noticed one that's happening a lot at the moment, is people using, so they get access to a Facebook profile and then they start messaging people. I've talked about this one a little bit before, but I had another one the other day, and the person, I hadn't heard from them in, I'm just looking at the message before that, I hadn't heard from them in 7 years, and this person messages me out of the blue.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to throw it out there. Like, if you're a friend and they greet you in a way, like the first word for me was the red flag, right? Like, this is a long, I don't know if you can see, like this is a long, goes on. But I'm like, hello. And I was like, I don't think Ange would message me like that.
Yeah.
I feel like she'd go, hey, Sam.
She's never said hello to me in my life.
I know. Why is she saying hello now? And then she says, how are you doing? Now, again, if the language sounds off, even if the grammar's fine, it's probably a really good indicator.
Yeah.
I've just written back and gone, hi. And then, of course, this person starts, like, it's like, great, I've got someone, and in they go. And, they use things that. So this message was, hey, I hope you're doing well and enjoying life. I'm good and happy the way things are with me now. And I'm thinking, that doesn't sound very Australian, but all right.
Yeah.
She says, good to hear from you. Have you ever heard about the Department of Health and Human Services and the government grant offer yet? Now, I know, well, like the second I get this, I'm like, I can see how this catches people out.
Yeah.
I've just written back because, like, for me, I like to bait them a little bit and just, have some fun with it.
Play with them. Yeah.
I was like, hey, no, I haven't. And of course, this person comes back and goes, oh, well, it's a world grant humanitarian financial assistance to help support citizens financially who need help paying bills like their house, starting their own business, etc. Have you received your grant money yet? And I've, at that point, I'm like, right. Now, it's always that little voice in the back of your head going, but what if it is real, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the first thing that you want to be doing, of course, is asking questions, right?
Yes.
Clarify. So I knew where this person worked many years ago, and I know they don't work there anymore. So I asked a question deliberately to trip them up. I said, oh, do you still work at XYZ? Knowing that that place doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
And they've written back and gone, yes, sure. Why asking?
That's a dead giveaway right there.
I know, right? Anyway, I kind of kept going. I had some fun with this person. Meanwhile, I'm in the background because I had the phone number of this person and I'm texting them going,
Yeah.
did you know that your account has been compromised?
Exactly. And it goes two ways. It's like you as the receiver, but also the person who's being impersonated needs to be aware that this is happening, because you obviously were able to identify it, but maybe not everyone on her friends list is able to.
Yeah, well, what actually turned out was happening with this one. This wasn't someone that had hacked her account. In the end, it was someone who had duplicated her account. And so what you've got to keep in mind is, of course, people can see your friends list. If you've got that public, you can lock that down. They can see your friends list. They can see your personal profile. They can see all the details about you. So they can easily start another profile using your name, your profile picture, and your friends list. And that's how they're going through this process. So using a trusted source, what advice would you provide someone who has had, because I know lots of people have had that happen. Even Greg, my husband, had an instance recently where his account got duplicated, and everyone's going, why are you friend requesting me? I think I had one too, but I reported it so quickly it got shut down.
My mom's had it before, and then she's had to put it on her, on her profile. Don't answer any messages from me.
Yeah.
And it happens to everyone. And I think one of the other things as well to be really mindful of is, like you said, they duplicate profiles. If that person has one or two friends on their account, that's usually a good indication as well that it's a fake profile. So just digging a bit deeper into the Facebook profile, and not just, interacting through Messenger, but going to look at the profile and seeing, was the account created yesterday? If it was created yesterday, it's probably not your friend Ange, who you haven't spoken to in 7 years as well. So doing a bit of digging into the profile is also a good way to identify whether or not it's a real query. Another thing that you mentioned as well is you talked before about Telstra being Australian, and it jogged my memory. For people based in Australia, the spelling of words is really different. We use S instead of Z. We use OUR instead of OR. So really keep an eye out for that kind of spelling as well, because that's something that if they put anything in AI and ChatGPT or something, often it'll spit out an American writing. So that's another thing as well to keep in mind when you're checking. But to answer your question about how to report it or what to do once that's happened, definitely if it's someone who's impersonating someone that let that person know as well, because they'll need to go into their account and they'll need to do stuff on their end. But there's websites in Australia, there's ScamWatch, and there's a few other websites as well that we can put in the show notes where you can report either identity theft. So there's ID Care, and ScamWatch is a good one as well, like I said, to report any breaches or any cybersecurity attacks. So definitely once that's happened, it's too late to protect yourself, but there's steps that you can take to then not only recover your information, but also to report it. If it's anything to do with banking, of course, your bank is your first point of contact. If it's social media, the social media platform will have their own support for that as well. Yeah. I know it can feel really overwhelming. It's really easy to panic, but it's just kind of going through the steps of how to respond to an attack. There's some content in our course that does cover, we cover a lot of how to protect yourself, but what if it does happen? We've got some content and some links as well to follow if it happens to anyone.
Yeah, awesome. So, what are some of the things, you've talked before about the habits that we all have that can inadvertently make us vulnerable to cyber attacks. Can you sort of, I guess, draw our attention to some of those
Yeah.
things maybe that we do that we don't really think about?
Yeah, and I think that we all do as well. So the first thing to remember is that this is not like a shaming exercise. It's just more to make you realize that we all do those little habits online, usually to save time, usually because we're busy. And that's what, again, cyber criminals prey on, is always the fact that you're time poor, that you're busy, and that your attention is spread across multiple projects or items. So one of the cybersecurity habits that you need to be mindful of and to break as soon as possible is snoozing software updates or closing your laptop. I don't know if you've ever done that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit that at the end of the day, when work is done, I'm guilty of just shutting my laptop down, not turning off any of the tabs or anything like that. Also, because all your tabs are there, so you want to get back to them the next day.
I do that every day.
Yeah, it's because you're not shutting down your computer. Your computer doesn't have the opportunity to install any updates, any software updates
Got it.
that would be able to detect any viruses or anything nefarious on your device. So shutting down your computer is really important, but not just closing the lid down, but actually turning it off every day. Snoozing software updates is another habit that we all have, because you're usually in a Zoom meeting or you're doing something really important, and then that's when your computer decides that it's time to update your software. Again, it's often inconvenient, but it's a minor inconvenience for compared to what could happen.
Yeah.
The average cost to a small business of a cyber attack is $46,000.
Oh my
So you kind of
gosh.
have to weigh if those
Yep.
few minutes of software updates are worth potentially losing 46 grand. Another bad habit that we all have as well is passwords. And we didn't talk much about passwords, but passwords are kind of like the key to all your accounts. So it's really important that from the get-go, your passwords are secure. I know that I've been guilty in the past, and I know a lot of people who have as well, of reusing the same password, because who can remember 150 different passwords for their accounts, especially when we start introducing characters and letters and capitals and stuff like that. So what we recommend is, rather than trying to remember all your passwords, all the long, unique passwords that you create for all your accounts, use a password manager. So the password manager is a piece of software where you have to remember one password, which is your master password. And then from there, all your passwords are stored in an encrypted piece of software that ensures that everything is kept secure. So yeah, short passwords, repeated passwords, using your pet's name, using your date of birth. That's the first thing that hackers are going to try to use when they're trying to break into accounts. They're going to use your pets, your kids, and your birthday. So it's really important to, it's easy to remember, but again, it's small pain, but for enormous gain if it means that you're protecting yourself from a cyber attack. So those are all, habits that we all have. Also sharing your passwords, by email to someone else, sending it to a colleague via email, or having a spreadsheet. A lot of small businesses do that. They don't necessarily have the infrastructure or enough team members to warrant a sophisticated password management system. So they'll just use a spreadsheet where they've got all the accounts and all the logins and all the passwords. But the size of your business doesn't matter. A password manager should be a non-negotiable.
I've been using a password manager for years, and to be honest, it saves so much headspace, because
so much.
And you can have the same thing on your phone, and it just
Yep.
talks between the two devices.
Yep.
And you just have to remember the one that goes in. But the thing about it that I find that you've got to remember to do is when every time you set up a password on something or change it, you have to be
You need
logged
to
in
save
so
it.
that it will see that change.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's where you end up in a situation where
Yeah.
you've got to reset things.
Exactly. And it is like I'm very aware that these are all like extra steps that we're asking people to do. So it is that kind of people get annoyed and they're like, "Oh, it's that one
Yeah.
thing too many." Same thing with multi-factor authentication as well, which is kind of like that double security on a password. So multi-factor
Oh, please set
authentication.
up two-factor on
Yes,
everything where it's
exactly.
offered.
Yes.
Everything.
Everything. It's such a tiny amount of time that it takes you to just enter that code for, again, like
Yeah.
$46,000. I don't have that to just, wither away
Yeah.
to cyber criminals. So
But even the emotional, like you were talking before about the emotional toll that it takes, like forget the money, losing, having it, like it's an icky feeling to know that
yeah,
somebody has been in your personal environment, whether that
yeah,
is your email, whether that is taking your profile on Facebook, whether, whether that is somebody accessing your bank accounts. Like that's a breach of your privacy as much
yeah.
as anything else. So money aside, you still don't want that to happen. And you don't want someone to have full access to all of your images on Facebook and to
No,
take you out of that picture too.
correct. And to hold you, like hostage. That a lot of them do that.
Yeah.
There's been quite a lot of data breaches where they hold your information hostage, basically through ransomware to get you to pay a certain amount of money. And we all have information that is personal, like you said, that we don't want anyone to know, that we don't want anyone to see.
Mm,
So yeah, they definitely do prey on that. They prey on the shame factor as well, that people have, and it's really, it's really important to not let that affect you when if you go
mm.
through any kind of cyber breach or cyber attack. um, it happens to a lot of people. It's really prevalent, and
Yes, it's very easy.
yeah.
Do you know, I'm going to tell you a quick story about a time that and I totally forgot about this until you're just talking about it. But when you talk about ransomware, back before I ran my own business, I worked for a really big company that had many staff, and all of the staff had laptops. There were iPads or tablets, phones, all the rest of it. And we had a major server in Melbourne that everything was connected to. And I get an email one day on my work laptop that said, and I think this one's still going too, by the way. This would have been probably 11 or 12 years ago now, but I think this is still happening. This was an email that said, you've had a traffic fine.
Yes.
You've run a red light. We have a photograph of the red light that you've run. If you would like to see it, click on this link.
Yes.
We're going to be sending you a fine. Now, instantly, it was like the art of distraction because my brain straight away went to, oh my gosh, I've got a fine, not hang on, let's check the details.
Yeah.
And straight away, I'm like, I need to see this photo. And so I've clicked on the link. And luckily, I instantly saw a flicker on my screen. Up popped a little thing. It was a little notification saying, can't access file X, can't access file X. And I just went, I hit the shutdown button on the computer immediately. I rang my husband, who happens to be a Microsoft certified engineer. I was like, what's happened? And he goes, did you open anything you shouldn't open? I was like, no. He goes, what's the last thing you opened? And I said, I didn't get to see it, but it was a traffic, it was a red light picture of me going through a red light. And he's like, Sam, they don't take photographs of that. And if they do, they don't communicate it. They don't have your email address, Sam.
Yeah, that's
They're like,
right.
they wouldn't
Exactly.
get your email from your registration. I was like, I didn't even think about that. He's like, they've sent you a ransomware. And of course, following that, there's a little code that comes up. And what happens is they encrypt. And this had then encrypted, it slowly encrypted all of our laptops locally in Tasmania. We ended up getting told throw all of them in the bin because if any of them get opened again, it was going to then
The actual
get to the server.
devices.
We shut the devices down, but it was like we don't want them to connect with the server because it will do it. It'll encrypt everything.
Wow.
And they wanted $20,000 per device to give you the key to unencrypt it. And like we actually got saved a little bit with that. Luckily, Greg knew enough to be able to, and I had shut it down quickly enough that it wasn't able to get into any more files before. But if I'd stayed there and left it open for just another 5 minutes, it would have just been all hell broken loose. But this sort of thing happens all the time.
I'm based in Canberra, and somehow if I drive to Sydney for a weekend trip or for work or anything like that, categorically, every time I come back, I'll get a linked the toll text messages saying you need to pay your toll now. I don't know how they know. I'm guessing that my registration goes through the Linktee, their servers or something like that. But they, every time I go to Sydney, I get a text message saying I need to pay my toll. When I know that I've either already paid it or, it's too early, or sometimes it's not me who's gone to Sydney. It's just someone in my vicinity.
Exactly the same one too. And I'm like, Greg, this link doesn't look right. Yeah. He's like, nope, don't. And it's always after we get back from somewhere because we don't have any. So
you're like, oh yeah, I was there. It makes sense.
Oh, yeah. So easy to get caught out. So what are some things that people can do? You have got some small wins you can share with people, things that they can do to implement to help protect themselves online. I know you've already talked about a few of those. If you were to just say 3 key things that you would say people absolutely need to do, what would they be?
The 3 key things I would say is passwords to start with. So get those passwords, review your passwords, change them to long, unique passwords or even passphrases. So a passphrase is a combination of random words that mean something to you, but wouldn't be able to be found out by anyone else. So it could be, 4 different words: table, hedge, flower, fence. I'm looking at my backyard.
Yep.
But, you just put those together, and that is something that is a lot harder to break into. So long, strong, unique passwords, and or passphrases, that goes with your password manager as well. And then the multi-factor authentication, again, just set that up on all your accounts. Make sure that you've got that second layer of security on your accounts. Yep. And then anything else, if you want to learn more about cybersecurity and, become more cyber aware, we've got the training on our website, the Cyber Wardens training. So like I said at the beginning, it's as little as 10 minutes where we'll go over those red flags. We'll go over those types of cyber crimes, what you need to look after, what you need to look out for to make sure that you don't become a target. And then we've got a few different modes of delivery. So it's really easy for people to do it at their own pace and in the way that they prefer.
Awesome. I love it. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today, Kimberley. I know this is it's somewhat of a negative conversation, but I think a really important one because we all know that this stuff happens.
Yeah.
And I think there's always that little inkling of, is this real? Isn't it? So I think you've certainly clarified some of that for people today. Please make sure you do those few things and check out the Cyber Wardens training. If, of course, you are an Academy member with Oxano, please go in and do our security training. We've also got a checklist in there for you as well, which is really very focused on your social media profiles and platforms. But again, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're flat out busy, so I appreciate your time. And hopefully if this saves just one person from
one person, if it saves, $46,000 for one person, I feel like our job here will be done. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And I think prevention in this situation is a lot better than the cure. So definitely, go in, do the training, and make sure that you help protect your small business.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you again so much. Thanks to our listeners. If you know anybody who needs to hear this message, please share this far and wide. If there is one type of email I never want to receive again, it is, can you please help me get my profile back, my page back, my group back, or is this a scam? So thank you again so much, Kimberley. Thanks to our listeners. Please share this message and we'll see you again on the podcast next week. That's it from us. Bye for now, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.